Chapter 1. It's war this year. There's a certain air of fuck it all and be who you want that comes with summer camp. If you're lucky and play your cards right, you could find yourself in a situation to reinvent yourself once a year every year with a whole new audience and maybe a handful of good friends. Not everyone has the luxury of experiencing that, but those of us who did understand how precious it is. We also understand how fragile it can be. The opposite experience is getting sent away from your home to some far-off place and being denied the opportunity to try on new personalities. Instead of being lucky and having a handful of friends to go through the motions with, you draw the short straw and get stuck with the perennial bully who will be there every third week in June to remind everyone of the time you blew chunks all over Sarah Coughlin when you were 12. I was that unlucky. In the summer between 7th and 8th grade, I begged and pleaded for my mom to not send me packing, but she wasn't having it. My mother was a lot of things, but understanding wasn't on that list. She valued her quiet time, so when I wasn't in school, I was playing basketball, failing miserably at baseball, making a fool of myself in the school play, pretending I understood the rules of chess club, or was at summer camp. By modern standards, she may have been considered a tiger mom, except she didn't give a shit if I was good or not, as long as I was out of the house. With that being her primary driver for deciding what should be done with me at any given season, I was sent to 4 different summer camps each year, one after the other, with perhaps a weekend break in between. These camps weren't close to home either. She preferred the ones where she could take a detour to an outlet mall after dropping me off. First was basketball camp in Hayes, KS. Then there was a Christian Bible camp outside Grand Island, NE. After that, I made a 2-week stop at a camp for wannabe child actors outside Kansas City, MO. And finally a 1.5-week stay at the wilderness camp my father insisted I attended, Camp Alkali. It was tucked neatly along the edge of the Nebraska National Forest and felt the farthest from my hometown of Kearney, Nebraska. Camp Alkali was a proper wilderness camp, complete with a supposed monster living in the lake, rumors of an old outlaw hideout in the woods, and a do-or-die culture to make the whole experience that much more traumatic for us all. "Mom, please, I don't want to go," I pleaded from the back seat of my mom's van, which was struggling to navigate the gravel road that led to the entrance of the camp.
You know how important it is for you to get out, be a boy, poke a frog, and explore the woods. Things like that. Besides, I didn't drive all this way with your nagging to give up now.
She took a drag off her cigarette, then flicked the butt out of her window. "But what if he's there again this year? He almost killed me last year, and we got in huge trouble. Remember? I rolled my ankle."
First off, rolling your ankle isn't a near-death injury. It just means you're clumsy. Second, you didn't get banned, so it couldn't have been that bad. You're getting yourself worked up over nothing.
She wasn't open to any argument I could make. That much was clear. Before I could think of a last-ditch effort to evade my fate, Mom turned the van onto a side road that rolled under an oversized wooden arch that said, Camp Alkali, on a large cedar plank. Animal skulls decorated the space on the rest of the arch, and through its entry point, you could see the bulk of the camp. It should have been a beautiful or exciting sight to a boy like me, but all I could think about was the year before, and how poorly it went. That particular camp was a mixed bag for me when I was growing up. On one hand, I had found a small group of friends who I could look forward to. Diego Connors, Barry Griffiths, and Rodney Hughes. We'd all met there our first year, the summer after 4th grade, and managed to keep in touch mostly through letters and an occasional phone call. Looking at us from the outside, our little group didn't make much sense, but we found enough common ground to build on. On the other hand, I had to be wary of, and mentally prepare for, Dexter Hansley and his gang of knuckle-draggers. Dexter found a new group each summer, seemingly drawing the rowdiest kids at camp like moths to a flame. Occasionally, there'd be a holdover from the year prior, but it was mostly fresh meat each summer. He and I had been at odds for years, and I didn't expect that year to be any different. Mom kept the van on track, passing under the looming arch and down the road to the camp's main hub. The campus itself was modest, consisting of a mess hall, a gymnasium, a small office that doubled as a nurse's station, and 6 cabins, 3 boys and 3 girls, each housing 10 campers. Camp Alkali took pride in its deteriorating exterior, so every off-season someone would come through and paint all the buildings a new color. That year was forest green, which made the siding of each building look like it was bowing, pulling itself to the ground. The van rolled in front of the mess hall where registration was set up inside, and Mom hopped out of the van, prepared to drag me out by force if necessary. It wasn't. She pulled the door open, and I stepped out with my head slung in defeat. Mom fetched my suitcase from the truck and placed it on the curb before lighting another cigarette and crossing her arms to scold me.
Listen, young man, we don't send you to all these camps for nothing, you know? You're supposed to learn something. Hell, even improve a bit, okay? So please try to buy into the program this year. Can you do that for me?
She took a long drag, then blew the smoke out of her nose like a skinny, suburban, minivan driving dragon. I grabbed my suitcase and turned away from her toward the mess hall. No promises. She didn't bother to argue, and I didn't blame her. We'd worked out an unspoken routine for these kinds of situations. Mom would ask me to not be me. I'd say, fuck off. She'd get mad. I'd walk away, and she'd walk away. It was dysfunctional, but it kept the day moving. So without another word, a hug, a kiss, or a goodbye, she crawled into her driver's seat and drove off. I made my way into the mess hall and waited in line behind a few other kids who were there. None of them looked familiar to me, but at that age, it was hard to say who was who. People aged and changed so much from year to year that their faces didn't stay static like they did in your memories. I waited there silently until I was called, entertaining myself by guessing the names of the kids in line ahead of me.
Next!
An older lady sitting at a faded plastic table squawked. I took a stiff step toward her.
Name?
She asked in a raspy, definitely smoked as much as my mother kind of voice. Matthews, Edward Matthews. She used one of her oversized fake nails to scan her clipboard until she found my name, then crossed it out with a pen.
All right, I got you right here. Says here that you were sent by your parents. That right?
Yes, ma'am, by my mother. I tried to keep my tone as upbeat as I could.
Odd.
She shot me a suspicious look.
They let you back in after last year?
Seems so, ma'am. She raised a disapproving eyebrow at me.
So, you know the drill then?
I believe so.
Good. You're in cabin C. Go get settled.
Her finger pointed to a door I'd entered through, and I promptly carried my one bag with me out of it. I hadn't even made it 3 feet out of the door when I heard the unmistakable East Coast accent of Rodney Hughes.
Eddie, is that you?
He was jogging toward me across the parking lot, and I was shocked to see he was at least 6 feet tall. The summer before, we were the same height. Rodney. Holy shit, man. When'd you get this tall? Rodney was from Boston, but his parents sent him to Camp Alkali to make sure he learned some real-world skills. Otherwise, we would have never met. He was a first-generation American. His parents had moved to Boston from somewhere in Sudan. Both were doctors. Out of our group of friends, Rodney was both the funny one and the tough one, which made him a type of social double threat, something he knew how to use to his advantage.
I just take after my old man.
He cracked a wide smile.
You just got here?
Yeah, my mom just dropped me off. Have you seen Digo and Barry yet? I tried to control my voice so as not to sound too eager.
Yeah, they're in the cabin, I think.
Cabin C?
You know it. After the shit that happened last year, you knew they were going to put us in the hole.
He let out a laugh loud enough to draw the attention of the other camps passing by. Not that Rodney would have minded. We walked together along the path that mirrored the lake banks, slowly making our way to our temporary home. There was a whole year's worth of life to catch up on, and each of us tried to hit the key points. I told him about my dog dying, my family changing churches, and my first kiss with Susan Katz. We didn't actually kiss, but I'd bragged about her being my girlfriend the year before, so I felt like I needed a follow-up story. He told me about his dad starting a new job, his new baby sister, and how weird things in Boston had felt since the Twin Towers fell during the school year. 9/11 shook the whole country. No one doubts that. But for many young people at the time, it felt like the world was titled on its axis a bit more after that day. After about 15 minutes, we were at the steps of Cabin C, nicknamed the Hole, because it was a true dumpster fire of a building. The roof leaked, the floorboard flexed, it housed a small city of ants. Something lived in the walls, the debate of rat versus mouse was never settled, and a family of raccoons had claimed the crawl space. Our home away from home was reserved for kids with behavioral issues, and the incident that my friends and Dexter's gang of Nimrods caused got us all blacklisted, so as much as we hated it, the Hole was home.
You know, all of the new campers will think we're a bunch of badasses once they hear the rumors about this cabin.
Or they'll think we're idiots if they find out what actually happened, I said, making my way up the steps to the cabin door, which was barely hanging onto its hinges.
History is written by the victors, Eddie. Did you ever hear that?
You think we're the winners in this situation? We're staying in the Hole, Rodney. I pulled the cabin's door open and stepped into its mildew-infested air. The first thing I saw was Diego Connors, his eyes wide with panic, motioning for me to duck. Unfortunately for me, I didn't listen, and instead I looked to my right and saw a fist coming at my face. The next thing I knew, I felt a stinging pain in my nose, heard a crunch, and then fell to my ass, hitting my head against the wall on my way down. There wasn't even time for me to get my bearings before I heard Dexter's nasal voice mocking me.
It's war this year, Eddie. You hear me? Fucking war!